She thought she won everything, until the truth she buried came back to destroy her life. I hadn't been home in 7 years. 7 winters had passed, 7 birthdays, 7 Christmas seasons where I told myself I didn't care, that I didn't need anyone, that my life was moving forward without my family. But the truth was, every December came with the same dull ache in my chest. A small part of me wanted to believe things had changed. Another part knew they probably hadn't. Back then, when I left, my mother looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Money's tight. We can't help you with anything anymore." Her voice was flat, cold, final. I was 20, barely holding myself together. I believed her so easily because I wanted to, because she was my mother, because I thought parents didn't lie about things like that. So I walked away with a single duffel bag and a wallet that barely closed around a few crumpled notes. I thought she simply couldn't afford to support me anymore. I never imagined the truth would be something else entirely, something much uglier. 7 years later, the road leading back home felt both familiar and strange. Snow lined the sidewalks, turning the small town into a quiet sheet of white and silver. The same old bakery sat on the corner, still glowing with warm yellow lights. The old lamppost still flickered the way I had when I was a teenager walking home in the evenings. Everything looked frozen in time, except me. When I pulled up in front of my mother's house, I just sat there for a moment, listening to the engine tick under the cold. My breath fogged the windshield in small clouds. My fingers hesitated on the door handle. I wasn't sure why I came. Maybe I wanted peace. Maybe curiosity. Maybe I just wanted to see if I still mattered at all. Finally, I stepped out, my boots crunching the snow. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The windows glowed warmly, the way they always did during December. For a moment, it almost felt like childhood again, like maybe I'd walk in and everything would fall back into place. But the moment I opened the front door, reality hit like a punch. The first thing I saw wasn't my mother. It wasn't even my sister. It was a giant framed photo hanging near the living room, a picture of my sister's 2 kids smiling and holding expensive, designer brand shopping bags. The kind of bags my mother used to say she'd never spend money on. The kind of gifts she told me she could never afford. Something sharp twisted in my chest, something between confusion and betrayal. Had money not been tight after all? Had she lied? Why? I didn't have time to process it, because a soft, familiar voice broke into my thoughts. "Hey." I turned toward the doorway. She stood there, Emma. My ex. The girl I had loved at 17 with every soft, careless dream inside me. The girl who vanished from my life right when everything started falling apart. The girl I thought had abandoned me. Or maybe the girl I believed I wasn't good enough for. Now she was here. She looked different, yet painfully familiar. Her hair was longer, falling gently around her shoulders. Her eyes were the same warm brown, but they carried a tiredness that wasn't there before. She held a tray of steaming tea, her fingers wrapped tight around the edges as if she needed something to steady herself. "Hi," I said quietly. The word felt small in my mouth. We stared at each other for a long second, and the house, with its warm lights and muffled kitchen laughter, suddenly felt too small, too full, too heavy. Emma stepped slowly into the living room and set the tray on the table. Her movements were careful, like she didn't know if she was allowed to be in my space or if she might break something invisible between us. "It's been a long time," she said softly. "Yeah," I replied. "It has." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with 7 years of questions, 7 years of things left unsaid, 7 years of pain neither of us had named. I looked at her, really looked at her. Why was she here? Why was she standing in my mother's house? Why didn't she ever try to find me? Why did she disappear without a word? But I didn't ask. Not yet. Instead, I glanced again at the photo of my sister's kids. Their hands lifted proudly, holding bags with logos big enough to scream luxury from across the room. The same brands I saw rich tourists carry in the city. The same brands my mother once swore she'd never spend a rupee on. I turned back to Emma. She was watching me. Not with curiosity, but with something like hesitation, maybe guilt. "Looks like things are going well here," I said quietly. Her eyes flickered toward the photo, then back to me. She didn't answer. But she didn't need to. Her silence was loud. Something inside me shifted. Something old and faintly wounded. My mother's voice floated faintly from the kitchen. Don't forget to bring out the other gifts. We still need to wrap everything. My hands curled slightly at my sides. Other gifts. So many gifts. So much money. All those years she told me, we can't help you. We can't buy anything for anyone. Times are hard. And yet here she was, laughing, celebrating, planning Christmas like money never once touched her world with difficulty. My heart felt heavy and tight, like it was carrying more weight than it knew how to hold. Emma shifted awkwardly. Your mom didn't know you were coming today. She thought you'd arrive tomorrow. I changed plans, I said. Though even as I spoke, part of me wondered if I should have come at all. As I looked around the room, the expensive gifts, the warm lights, the family photos, something cold settled inside me. I wasn't part of this world anymore. Or maybe I never had been. And yet here I was, standing in the middle of it again, face to face with the girl who once held my heart, and surrounded by the lies that pushed me away 7 years ago. I didn't know everything yet, but I could feel it, like a faint tremor under the surface. Something was wrong. Something was hidden. Something was waiting to break open. And the truth was standing somewhere inside this house, in the eyes of a woman who lied to me, and in the silence of a girl who suddenly looked like she had been holding a secret for years. I just didn't know it yet. But I would. Soon. Very soon. The dining table felt colder than I remembered. Not physically, but in the way people sit around it, trying not to say what they really feel. I sat at one end, Emma at the other. The soft clinking of plates and cups came from the kitchen, where my mother and sister were laughing about something. Their voices rose and fell like they lived in a different world, warm, bright, untouched by the silence sitting between Emma and me. Emma wrapped both hands around her tea mug, as if holding onto something warm might help her get through this moment. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, her eyes lowered, as though she was afraid to meet mine for too long. You look stronger now, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I let out a slow breath. I had to be. She swallowed hard, as if my words hit her somewhere deep, like she had expected me to say something gentler, something softer. But softness didn't come easily to me anymore. Not after everything. For a moment, all I could hear was the ticking clock on the wall and the faint sound of my mother tearing wrapping paper in the kitchen. The distance between Emma and me felt wider than the table. Like 7 years of silence had built a slow wall between us, brick by brick, secret by secret. How have you been? She asked, trying again. I've been okay, I replied. Working. Moving around. Figuring things out. She nodded but didn't smile. She seemed nervous, restless, like she wanted to say more but was scared of what might happen if she did. I looked at her hands, still trembling slightly around the mug. You look tired, I said quietly. She blinked quickly. Yeah, life's been a lot. There was a soft crack in her voice she tried to hide. But I heard it. For a moment, something inside me softened. Just for a moment. But then a memory surfaced, of her standing outside school years ago, tears in her eyes, trying to say something to me. A memory of me trying to call her that night, only to find my phone had suddenly stopped connecting. A memory of not understanding why she had disappeared, only knowing she did. I shook the thought away, focusing on her now. Emma, I began. Back then, why did you just? She cut me off gently. I never wanted to disappear. Her voice cracked again, this time more clearly. I leaned forward slightly. Then why did you? She hesitated, and that hesitation felt like a knife twisting slowly in old wounds. Your mom told me, she started, then stopped. Her eyes flicked toward the kitchen, where my mother's laughter grew louder. She told me you didn't want anything to do with me, or the situation I was in. The words chilled me. My mom said that. I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Emma nodded slowly. She said you were leaving town, that you needed space from everything, and that I should let you go. She swallowed, and she said you didn't want the responsibility. Responsibility? The word hit me like a blow. My chair felt suddenly too small, the air too thin. I leaned back, trying to process what she was saying. What situation? I asked. The question left my mouth calmly, but inside, I felt something dark uncoiling, anger, confusion, something I wasn't ready to name. Emma looked down, twisting the edge of her sleeve between her fingers. I don't think I can talk about it here, she whispered. Not with your mom in the next room. She wasn't scared of me. She was scared of my mother. That realization made my stomach twist painfully. What did she hide from me? I pressed, my voice low but controlled. Emma, tell me. She looked up briefly, her eyes filled with something between fear and regret. I want to, she whispered. But she made everything so complicated back then. She controlled every conversation, every message, every moment we tried to talk. I stared at her, stunned. Pieces of old memories fell into place, memories that felt blurry until now. Times I never got her texts. Times my mother told me, "Don't bother with that girl, she's only stressing you." Times my sister made comments like, "It's better for you to stay away from her." Times my mother took my phone to fix something and handed it back differently. My pulse quickened. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Emma's hands were trembling again. She pulled them into her lap. "I don't want to hurt you," she whispered. "But you need to know she didn't tell you the truth back then. Not even close." "Then start with something," I said quietly. "Anything." She opened her mouth as if to speak, but her eyes darted once more toward the kitchen hallway, at the shadow of my mother moving around happily, humming to herself, decorating, planning gifts for a Christmas I wasn't even part of. Emma's face paled. "She's hiding more than you think," she whispered. "And I'm scared to open all of it here. She'll overhear. She'll twist it. She always does." A coldness settled over me, slow and icy, weaving its way into my chest. "I want to understand," I said, my voice softer now. "You vanished. No explanation. No goodbye. Nothing. I need to know what happened." Emma looked like her heart was breaking. "I tried," she said. "I tried so many times. But every time I reached out, somehow, you didn't respond. And your mom always showed up first. She kept saying you needed peace, that I was causing problems for you." She paused, wiping a tear quickly before it could fall. "And when I told her I needed to talk to you, that I needed you," her voice shook. "She told me you didn't need me, that you wanted a different life." My hands tightened around the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. My mother had lied. Not once, not twice, but over and over, in ways I never even noticed. I glanced toward the kitchen again. My mother's laughter floated out easily, unbothered, unbreakable. Something inside me hardened. Emma lowered her voice even more and leaned closer. "I know you don't trust me," she said softly. "And maybe you shouldn't. But what happened 7 years ago was not my choice. And it wasn't yours either." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" She closed her eyes briefly. "There was something I needed to tell you back then. Something important. Something your mother didn't want you to know." My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. "What was it?" I whispered. She opened her eyes, filled with guilt, fear, and something deeper, something like love that never fully died. "I can't say it here," she whispered urgently. "But tonight, when you walk me to my car, I'll tell you everything. The truth your mother hid from you." The room felt suddenly heavier, like the walls were listening. I nodded slowly. Something was off. Deeply off. Neither of us said anything more, not because we didn't want to, but because the truth had grown too large to fit inside one room with my mother's shadow hanging over it. One thing was clear. Whatever happened 7 years ago, whatever Emma wanted to say, whatever my mother buried, it was coming back, and it was ready to break everything open. The air outside was colder than before. The sky was already dark, and a thin layer of snow covered the driveway like a quiet blanket. The house behind us glowed with warm light and loud laughter, but none of that warmth reached us. Emma walked beside me slowly, her boots crunching softly over the snow. She kept looking down, as if she was afraid that if she looked at me, she might lose her courage. We reached her car, parked under the old oak tree. Its bare branches stretched above us, like dark arms reaching into the cold night sky. The same tree we used to sit under as teenagers. The same tree where she once kissed me for the first time. Now it felt like the place where everything would break open. She stopped near the driver's side door and let out a shaky breath. "I didn't want to tell you like this," she said quietly. "Not here. Not after so long. I stood still, waiting. My heart was beating too fast, too loud, like it was trying to force its way out of my chest. Then tell me, I said, keeping my voice steady. Whatever it is. I need to know. She nodded slowly. Her eyes shone with fear and sadness. You deserve the truth, she whispered. All of it. She took another breath, then finally looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw 7 years of pain. I was pregnant, she said. The world went silent. Completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. My breath caught. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Pregnant. The word echoed through my mind, heavy and unreal. My voice cracked when I finally spoke. What? She blinked, tears building. I was carrying your baby. I found out right after graduation. I tried to tell you, I tried so many times, but every time I reached out, your mom came instead. My throat tightened until it hurt. Why didn't you tell me? I did, she whispered helplessly. I tried to. I called, I texted, but you never answered. And then your mom came to my house. She said you were planning to leave town, that you were angry and stressed, and that you didn't want a mistake to tie you down. I staggered back a step. She said that. Emma nodded slowly. She told me you didn't want the baby. That you didn't want me. That you wanted to start fresh without any responsibility. My hands shook at my sides. I could barely breathe. My God, I whispered. She lied. She lied about everything. Emma wiped tears from her cheeks with trembling fingers. I didn't know what to do, she said. I was 18. Scared. Alone. And your mom, she made it sound like telling you would ruin your life. She promised she would handle it, that it was better for everyone. A sour, sick feeling twisted in my stomach. What does that mean? Handle it. I asked. Emma didn't answer with words. Instead, she opened the back door of her car. Inside, in a small booster seat, sat a little boy with big dark brown eyes so familiar they felt like a punch to the heart. He looked up at me, confused but curious, and I stared back at him, at myself in miniature. My voice broke completely. He's mine, I whispered. Emma nodded, tears falling freely now. He's 6. 6. A whole lifetime. All the years I missed, his first steps, his first words, the nights he cried, the birthdays, the moments no father should ever lose. I felt like the world had tilted under my feet. I reached out slowly, my hand shaking, and he looked at it, then at me. He didn't hold my hand. He just stared, trying to make sense of who I was. And I couldn't blame him. He didn't know me. Because my mother had stolen that right from me. Emma's voice was soft, apologetic, breaking. I tried to tell you after he was born. I tried again when he turned 1. But every message bounced. Every call failed. I thought, maybe your mom was right. Maybe you really didn't want us. Anger burned through me, slow, hot, devastating. Emma, I said, my jaw tight, I would have been there. I would have never left you alone. I know that now, she whispered. But back then, I only had your mom's words. And she was so sure, so confident. She acted like she was protecting you. Protecting me. No. She was controlling me. Manipulating. Cutting me away from the people who mattered. Emma closed the car door gently so the boy wouldn't hear. I'm sorry, she said. I am so sorry. I shook my head. You don't need to apologize. Not for something she caused. The night felt colder, darker. But inside me, something fierce was waking, something I hadn't felt in years. A decision. My mother took years from me. A child from me. A life from me. I couldn't get those years back, but I could take something from her, something she never thought she would lose. The next morning, when the sun was still low, I went inside to pack my bags. Snow melted on my boots as I walked across the living room where the expensive gifts sat proudly under the tree. My mother came to the doorway, confused. You're leaving already? She asked, forcing a smile. But Christmas is tomorrow. Yes, I said calmly, closing my suitcase. Why? She asked, her voice tightening. What's wrong? Did something happen? I looked at her, really looked at her. At the woman who lied, manipulated, controlled, stole. Yes, I said. Something happened. Her face paled. And you don't get to know, I added quietly. Not anymore. She opened her mouth to speak, maybe to defend herself, maybe to lie again, but I held up a hand. I know what you did, I said. 7 years ago. And you don't get a second chance at my life. Her eyes widened, her breath catching. You don't get to meet him, I said. You don't get to buy your way back in. You don't get to pretend you care. She stepped toward me, panicked. Who? Who are you talking about? I picked up my bag and stood in the doorway. You know exactly who, I said. And because of what you did, you've lost everything that mattered. She froze. Tears filled her eyes. Wait. But I didn't stop. My revenge was not loud, not violent, not dramatic. It was simple. I walked out of her house, out of her control, and out of the life she tried to shape for me. She wanted power. She wanted obedience. She wanted to be the center of everything. Now she had nothing. No say. No control. No access. And as I closed the door behind me, I said the only line that needed to be said. You're not family anymore. I walked toward Emma's car, toward my son, toward the life that should have been mine all along. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt free.